Welcome back, viewers. Today I'm joined by Gowri sir again. He's a sponsor of our podcast and he's been helping us gather insights and make the podcast what it is. It's an honor to have you, sir, again.
Thank you, Arav, for having me.
Today's topic is AI in education and how the education sector is being impacted with the rise of AI. Sir, there are lots of questions from me, my teachers, and the peers of my age, which are our audience, about how AI can change the way we learn and how teachers can incorporate that AI to teach us.
Right. So, thank you, Arav. Thank you for the question, and thank you for having me as a part of this podcast. These dialogues are very important, crucial to us, not just to share the knowledge that I have, also to gain knowledge from you as the newer and younger generation. And I think this should also extend and reflect within schools and universities, the drive to introduce newer technologies for the current generation. Right. So if you look at schools, universities, and institutes, it's being run mostly by older generations, right?
Yeah.
And slowly we have Gen Z in the equation now coming into different roles. But then trying to have this balance, right? Trying to understand how much of technology is available and how much of that is really useful to students from the education point of view is an important decision to make. There are two stories, I would say, happening in Dubai, also UAE in general. One is basically like schools just striving to integrate technology, see what is the best way in which they can empower their teachers and also get this whole thing done faster so that students can also make use of this technology. On the other side, we do still face resistance to change. Right? I also consult with schools and universities. So when I go there, definitely there are two types of audience. The one that says that AI is not helpful at all. It's going to maybe, it's going to be a doom in the terms of critical skills and creativity and so on for the students. On the other side, staff who advocate for the use of AI and say how powerful and productive it is. Right? So within schools, the very first step is AI literacy. Whether you embrace AI or not, there is no harm in learning about it. This is what the school students do as well. You learn so many subjects, but do you know that you're going to implement all of those in your career? So why do you learn? It's because there is no harm in learning that. No harm in having any kind of knowledge. And this is what the teachers who preach this to the students should also primarily practice that as well. So there is no harm in learning AI, know about it, know about AI, what it is doing to education system across the globe, not just UAE, and then make your decision whether you want to introduce this or not, right? This happens on the staff side. Now coming to the management, they need to provide enough time to staffs to embrace technology and to learn technology. If you're bombarding them with work, timetabling for, completing the curriculum and so on, how much time do they have left to actually learn technology and use that in the classroom?
Fair enough.
And number three is policy, right? You need to have AI policies in place within schools, universities, and institutes so that every stakeholder understands how much of AI they can use and what is that they should not be doing. The policy will not be applicable just to students and staff or the institution or organization anymore. It will also be applicable to parents in the coming age. This has not been something that had been talked about with any other technology. But parents need to be continuously aware of new technologies that their sons and daughters are using at home. Do they really know it? And can the institution or school give them this policy and tell them, see, these are the things that your child can use, and these are the different types of tools or kind of lines that they cannot cross, right? So I think these are starting points, I would say. AI literacy, time for, gaining this literacy or knowledge, and policies in place. And that will eventually help the students, who are currently in schools.
So with the rise of AI, everybody needs to know what it is, how it functions, to make a proper decision about it, to let them use it or not let them use it, to let them use it in a commodity, in a different scenario. So that's pretty good. I think if schools adopt that, then we'll be allowed to use AI for stuff which will actually help us, completely reduce the stress, the load we have on ourselves in school. And then also when we need to not use AI, when we need to actually use our brain, actually gather our knowledge, help us in that way.
Definitely.
So with the rise of AI, as policies get adopted, as people understand, we students, obviously we understand how AI helps us in the most ethical way to use AI, in school with our with the guidelines we have in place, how can students use AI in school to just, make our workload easier, to make us more efficient?
Right. So I wouldn't say that there is a blanket policy available at the moment. Different schools exercise different levels of AI implementation and integration, right? It also depends upon the maturity of the students as well, right? Which graders they are. Depends on that, to decide how much of AI needs to be implemented. Now, across the globe, what's happening is that we had also discussed this in the previous podcast, that there are some schools that are banning the use of AI,
Yeah.
but there are some institutions that are entertaining and integrating AI at a very early age, right? So all of these discussions are only about one very essential thing, or one very essential factor: AI literacy. Right? So when everyone knows, when every stakeholder knows what is AI, what's happening in its background, in what ways can it benefit students, and in what ways it can harm them, when you have this knowledge from an early age, you might try to avoid mistakes. Right? So for students, I cannot say now that go and start using ChatGPT to write your assignments. Right? So I'm not in a position to say that, because different schools will have different policies. The question here is, do we actually need the current education system in terms of how we are coming up with this curriculum, or how we are assessing students? One of the institutes in the US is basically asking students to copy the prompt they have used to develop their assignment, and they have given a field in their answer sheet for that, where the student will copy the prompt. Now,
Okay.
this prompt will have a lot of creative thinking, will have a lot of critical thinking in it, which the students are evaluated for. The students are evaluated for their prompt and not for their assignment. Right? So look at this. Look at the way in
Wow.
which we can actually embrace the technology, at the same time still ensure students are growing intelligent. And number two, these written assignments are not going to help for the long run, right? Because anyone can write for you.
Yeah.
Make students demonstrate their projects and assignment in the classroom.
Bit more
Let's-
hands-on type.
Definitely. Let's also hear from them. Let's also see their public skills. Let's see their communication skills. When I say communication skills, now staffs will be thinking about how you interact, how you speak, how you write, and so on. The future communication skills are not going to be this. It is also going to be how you interact with machines. That
Yeah,
is going
yeah,
to be an
definitely.
important aspect of communication skills by itself in definition, right? So we need to come up with this mindset shift, right? So all what I had been teaching my students as an educator, is it right now? Is it relevant now? We need to ask that question.
Like prompt engineering and stuff. You need to know
Definitely.
how to
So,
communicate
so
with
as students, you need to understand how AI works.
Yeah,
Sit on
yeah.
top of the pyramid, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
don't allow AI to overtake you. Find out aspects of artificial intelligence that it cannot do by itself, or it can be challenged with. As a human being, you can actually challenge artificial intelligence. As students, you need to continue to challenge, right? So let's say if you're using AI to write an email, or if you're using AI to write something, learn from it, right? So understand what AI is doing in terms of grammar, vocabulary, tonality, and then try to implement that in your day-to-day work or skills, right? So that will be my suggestion.
Okay, so you have a vast array of experience, and we know that you've worked with people. You said you've worked with schools, you've worked with institutions. So you know how students' minds work. How can students actually think, better? How can students think to do that prompt engineering? What can we do to actually increase our skill level in communicating with those machines?
Right. So number one, if you have to prompt correctly, right? So whatever you type in the, let's say you're using ChatGPT, whatever you type in the field box might not be the most refined prompt, right? So your first learning with prompt engineering should be to have this framework to prompt. I suggest to all my stakeholders and clients that I visit to use something called the CREATE framework.
Okay.
Right? So this is something that I invented based on my knowledge with prompt engineering. So CREATE is basically an acronym, CREATE. So C stands for context, right? So you will have to, any kind of output you're trying to generate out of any LLM tool, you need to give the context. R stands for role. So what role are you going to take, or what role is the LLM going to take in giving you that output? Is it going to be a student? Is it going to be an educator? Is it going to be an entrepreneur? You have to define the role.
The person it needs to be.
The person it is going to impersonate, right? Because depending on that role, it is also going to change. Now the next one is going to be E, is the environment. So environment is also about constraints. So there will be certain aspects of the problem that you are defining which will be restricted. There will be some do's and don'ts in that.
Definitely,
you will have to define that in the environment.
Set of rules.
Certain set of rules, right? And then you will also have to define A is the audience. What kind of audience is this message, the output for?
Right, okay.
Right, so A is for that. T is going to be the task, right? Basically T is something that you define at the very start. But here, in order to bring it into the acronym, we've just kept it there, right? So T is for the task, and E is for example. The last E is for example. So can you give an example to ChatGPT? Let's say I want something of this kind. Let's say you are trying to come up with a slogan. So you can give an example to Chat. Say I want a slogan like this.
Make it look like that.
So if you every time you want to create a prompt, remember the word create. And this is your starting point to come up with a nice refined prompt.
Prompt engineering, okay. No, I think that's amazing. And in many families, there's a pressure to be either a lawyer, a doctor, and stuff like that. With AI transforming every sector, how can we use that AI, which we know about, prompt engineering, and you said advanced robotics in the last podcast. How can we use that AI to just make us more advanced and be ready in that sector, in the advanced sectors?
Right. So I can see that there are two questions here, right? So one is parents' peer pressure on taking up a particular occupation.
Yeah.
So if you look at the past 10, 15 years, the fields have become more interdisciplinary.
Yeah.
So instead of biology and chemistry, we have biochemistry. Instead of biology and medicine, we have biomedicine. Instead of mechanical and electronics, we have mechatronics, right? Because the fields are becoming more and more advanced. So we don't have one domain, a single domain like medicine or engineering anymore. Everything has AI integrated within it, right? So as students, you need to embrace the new technology. Start with your prompt engineering basics. Learn tools like Python or Scratch, Lovable or Cursor. These are tools that will help you with vibe coding or something where you can create coding without even typing any line of code, right? So these skills are going to allow you to become an AI technology embracer who can eventually get into any domain, but every domain will demand you to have the AI skill. So you can become a doctor in the future who had pursued his medicine, but then there will be definitely AI tools that you have to deal with in your day-to-day life, right? So having this AI knowledge is going to open up your scope and always be ready for new occupations. The future occupations are going to be about data analysis, data engineering, data interpretation, and if you can gain these skills within your current education itself, and that is going to go a long way irrespective of the occupation that you're going to choose.
So, we know soft skills like communication, kindness, stuff like that. At this point, AI has basically made its way into there.
Yep.
And every skill you need, a skill you need to do every single job,
Yep.
whether it be, your full-on fledged career, even the simplest jobs, taking a walk, AI can help us in that. It's a skill you need
Yep.
to just live life, I think, in the next day and age.
Definitely.
So we talk about, how educators, like teachers and everybody, they help students like me and my peers use AI, the dilemmas they face with using that AI. But other than schools, outside of school, non-school entities, what other stakeholders are there which will help me develop my, learning in AI, my use of AI and my projects which I make using AI?
Yeah, so that's, there's a lot of work happening there, especially governments are focusing on youth empowerment. Youth not just focusing on universities, but also schools and so on, right? So when it comes to external entities, there are, let's say, communities, just like Dubai AI community. There are so many other communities which are working towards providing these skills, let's say like workshops and so on, to students, school students.
Yeah.
We also have incubators and accelerators who are focusing on youth initiated AI ventures or youth initiated technology ventures.
Yeah.
Even if you are in school, you can still apply for these. And some of them also provide grants to help you build your project, right? And then we do have a lot of push from the government, but that comes through indirect means. So you might not be able to directly apply to a project with the government.
Okay.
But then it flows in through the communities, it flows in through incubators. There are also student clubs who are organizing events amongst themselves, which means that these student clubs will be inviting other school students as well to participate in hackathons and things like that.
Okay.
Right. So these are some of the initiatives that external stakeholders are currently involved in when it comes to empowering students as such.
Okay. Speaking of one of the main external people outside of school, which people my age, students have, are our parents. And they're always worried about what AI does to us. Sometimes they say that AI is making us stupider. But with that, there's also side effects like it hurts our eyes, it impacts our memory retention, and just all of that kind of stuff. What do you have to say for that, and how can we minimize the effects of that? Always being on screens and using those AIs instead of writing stuff down in notebooks. How can we minimize that?
Right. So there are several aspects to this, right? So this is a debatable question, I would say. How much of AI can actually students use? Now, a recent study by MIT, right, maybe a few weeks ago, it was released. What it did was it involved a batch of people who had been extensively using ChatGPT, and then it also brought in non-ChatGPT users to the room, and they asked them to perform very simple exercises on a laptop or some kind of a device to study. They observed a few things, right? So the non-ChatGPT users were more engaged in these sessions. They were able to easily interact with that exercise, whereas the ChatGPT users, their engagement levels was also low, and they were not interested in that activity because they were not allowed to use ChatGPT for that activity.
Okay.
The fact that they had been so used and so attached to using LLMs, now they are not even interested in going into activities that are not allowing them to use these. So they have termed this as something called cognitive weakening. We are not talking about loss of intelligence or loss of interest. We are talking about losing our entire cognitive ability by extended use and dependence on tools like ChatGPT. Now, extending this back to students, bringing it back to children, can we allow this to happen to them? Now, my generation is a gifted generation, in my opinion, is because we have used non-conventional methods to grow our intelligence, and now we are at the intersection of age where a new technology meets, and we know how much of it we can use, and we also know that the non-conventional methods that we had been used to are actually being beneficial in certain aspects.
Okay.
Let's say that, due to some reason whatsoever, we have an entire power shutdown across the globe. We go into some kind of a dark era. Now, the technology works on top of power consumption. So there's no power to consume. Now, how will you lead your life? Let's say there are 2 days of blackout. Can you lead your life in those 2 days for 48 hours without using ChatGPT or LLMs? Now, in such cases, you need to have that inherent human intelligence, right?
Yeah.
You need to go through the day, and you need human intelligence for that. So, students will have to definitely have restrictions on screen time, especially youngsters, the new generation, let's say Gen Alpha. If we allow them to use unlimited screen time, unlimited technology, they are going to grow more and more dependent on this technology. And when you expose them to a situation where they can't use the technology, they become totally, they cannot face that situation, right? Okay. So we need to have those restrictions, and AI can help this. Now, we have tools on mobile phones, pads, and laptops which warns you the screen time, which sends an intimation to parents that your child has, overshot the screen time by this much, and they're using these kind of tools. Right? So I think AI itself can come to the rescue for this problem, but growing these cognitive skills, growing this inherent human skills as mingling, collaborating, communicating is very, very important and needs to be given equal importance. And top of that, we also allow them to use AI, especially when they become more mature. Right. In your age, you might know, where you can draw the line up to an extent. But if you had been exposed to the same technology 10 years ago, and if I ask you now, when you are exposed to 10 years of such technology, your answer might be different.
Yeah, I would
Right,
not know how
so-
to work with that ChatGPT if I've been using it since I was 6 years old, 7 years old.
Exactly.
Can't, yeah.
So we have to fear this cognitive weakening, and we have to always continue to remain intelligent. If ChatGPT saves 2 hours of time for you from your day-to-day work, utilize those 2 hours to become more intelligent. And how you do that? Ask yourself.
No, don't ask ChatGPT how to
Yes.
not use ChatGPT and become more intelligent.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to the educator side of this. Obviously, as we say that the teachers, they're a little bit older than us, they've not used ChatGPT, not used all this AI, they've learned the conventional methods. And now they're passing that down onto us. We're also learning the conventional methods, slowly, but we want the advent of AI. We need it, and unfortunately for us, we're going against the teachers' will and behind their backs to use that AI for us. What are those teachers feeling, first of all, and what can they do to use that AI in a good manner to relate to us and just make the whole teaching environment, the whole school, just a better place using that AI?
Right. So I do talk to I converse with a lot of staff from universities and schools as well. I do understand their pain points. Although we advocate so much about AI integration, we might not be giving them the time to do it. So the numero one factor, more than resistance to change, is that they do not have time to actually learn new technology. So we need to give them that. So they definitely have the fear of being becoming outdated in today's world.
Wiped out.
Yeah, so that's happening with them. So recently we had been conducting a series of workshops within Dubai AI community, which is aimed at AI for educators. And some of these educators are seeing the use of AI, the advantage of AI for the first time.
Wow.
And they are so happy that AI can actually save so much of their time in terms of daily work, in terms of help with assessments, in terms of helping with the lesson planning and so on.
Yeah.
So in various ways AI can support, but there is also an inherent need for curriculum changes. There is an inherent need for assessment changes. We can't continue to have the same kind of curriculum and assessment design and expect teachers to change the delivery alone. It needs to be a holistic change. So we have two types of educators. One, those who are concerned about the use of AI, who are slowly adapting to it, and one set of users who have already have an enhanced kind of knowledge on AI, and they are trying to see if they can convince the management and stakeholders to integrate that more into their subjects. Okay. And one last point is that there are two types of AI integration within education. One is using AI for the delivery of that subject. It can be mathematics, it can be physics, biology, science, whatever it is. And the other is a subject on AI by itself, right? There is an AI subject which basically talks about AI, ethics, and so on, right? Both needs to be, needs to go hand in hand.
Definitely.
And of course the policies.
I agree.
If the students and staff and parents do not have the policies in place, they will be clueless. They will not know where to go. So definitely. I think that is a gist about this, but this is a very a large discussion, right? So I might not be able to consolidate that in a few lines, but it is a work in progress, and things will get better in the next few years.
Mm-hmm. That's very insightful. At least now we know what the teachers are feeling, and I can kind of understand what sorts of struggles the teachers which teach me they're going through, and I can also help them use the AI, and then they can help me with the lessons and everything. Okay, let's move on to something a bit more light-hearted, funny tone, right? How would ChatGPT as a person do the whole school day? Will it be able to survive through the whole school day?
Now that's interesting, right? So ChatGPT can be equated to a student. So there are instances where ChatGPT can make it much faster. It can finish the entire schooling in 1 minute, right? And there are also instances where ChatGPT can actually crash because it's not able to equal itself to human intelligence.
Okay. Right. There's some aspects it can do, some it can't. But yeah, this was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. We've had so much fun. We've got lots of insights about education, teachers, students, AI, and how ChatGPT can handle cafeteria choices. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for joining and watching the podcast.
My pleasure, Arav. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks to the audience.